Ladies and gentlemen, there is a silent epidemic among good people, people with warm hearts, big dreams, and deep compassion. And that epidemic is being too nice. Some of you are not tired because life is hard. You're tired because you've spent your entire life trying to carry people who were never meant to ride on your back. You're confused sacrifice with self-sabotage, humility with invisibility, and kindness with silence. But I came to tell you today, your purpose is not to please everybody. You weren't created to be liked. You were created to be effective. Somewhere along the line, you were taught that being a nice person means always saying yes, never speaking up, always apologizing, always shrinking back. That's a lie. Kindness is a fruit of strength, not fear. Love speaks truth. Purpose sets boundaries. Wisdom says no. And faith stands firm even when misunderstood. Boundaries are not ungodly. They are necessary for growth and clarity. This statement confronts a common misconception, especially among well-meaning, kind-hearted individuals who believe that setting limits makes them less loving, less spiritual, or even selfish. In reality, boundaries are a divine principle. They are not a wall to shut people out, but a gate that determines what comes in and what must stay out. Boundaries create order in the chaos. Even in creation, God established boundaries. He separated light from darkness, land from sea, day from night. These separations were not acts of rejection, but of divine structure. Without boundaries, there is confusion, blurred identity, and exhaustion. Relationships become draining, purpose becomes diluted, and time becomes misused. When a person lacks boundaries, they often say yes out of guilt, obligation, or fear, not out of purpose or alignment. Boundaries define where one person ends and another begins. They protect your energy, your values, your emotional capacity. Without them, your life becomes dictated by other people's expectations rather than your own convictions. You cannot grow if your soil is constantly being trampled. You cannot hear clearly if your space is always being interrupted. You cannot fulfill your assignment if you're always entangled in everyone else's emergencies. Boundaries make room for clarity. They allow you to prioritize what matters most, to discern what needs your attention, and to protect your time and peace like sacred treasure. Some people avoid boundaries because they fear being disliked or misunderstood. But maturity means choosing obedience over approval. It means being willing to be misunderstood for the sake of your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Growth always demands pruning, and pruning requires precision, knowing what to keep and what to cut, who to keep close and who to love from a distance. Not everyone deserves full access to your life. Access must match character, consistency, and alignment. When you allow people unlimited access without accountability, you create an environment ripe for misuse and disappointment. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about managing yourself. Clarity follows boundaries. When you know your limits, your values, and your priorities, decisions become easier. You stop wasting time explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop apologizing for resting, for saying no, for protecting your vision. Boundaries help you stay focused on what truly matters. Without them, life becomes a constant reaction to other people's demands. With them, life becomes a proactive journey toward purpose. Boundaries teach others how to respect you. They are not a rejection of love. They are an expression of it, because love without wisdom leads to burnout. Compassion without clarity leads to confusion. And servanthood without structure leads to slavery. You were not created to carry everything, fix everyone, or be available to all things at all times. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowd to pray, to rest, to realign. He didn't heal every person in every town. He moved with purpose, not pressure. If the most powerful man to ever walk the earth set boundaries, what makes us believe we should live without them? Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you responsible. This truth challenges the deeply ingrained fear many people carry The fear of disappointing others, of being misunderstood, or of being seen as unkind. But the reality is that saying yes to everything doesn't prove love, maturity, or generosity. It often proves a lack of self-awareness and boundaries. Saying no is not a rejection of people, it's a commitment to purpose. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values or assignment, you're saying no to something that does. The power of no is not rooted in arrogance or pride, but in clarity. It's the ability to recognize your limitations and to steward your time, energy, and focus with intentionality. When you constantly say yes out of guilt or fear, you end up overcommitted, overwhelmed, and eventually bitter. That's not love, that's self-betrayal. No is not a negative word, it is a wise word. It is how you protect your priorities, honor your capacity, and safeguard your peace. People often believe that the more available they are, the more valuable they become. But availability without discernment leads to burnout. You were never designed to meet everyone's expectations. You have an assignment, a calling, and a capacity, and every one of those requires boundaries. Learning to say no means you've come to understand that responsibility includes restraint. You're not called to everything. Not every open door is your opportunity. Not every invitation is your obligation. Responsibility means being able to discern what is right for you in this season and unapologetically walking in it. Saying no also creates space for others to grow. When you constantly say yes, you may unknowingly enable dependency in those around you. By always stepping in, fixing problems, and being available at the cost of your own peace, you prevent others from maturing in their own strength and decision making. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Your no might be the catalyst for someone else's growth. It might be the boundary that teaches respect. It might be the silence that causes someone to hear their own conscience. You are not everyone's answer. You are not the savior of every crisis. Learning to say no is an act of humility because it acknowledges that you have limits, and that's not weakness, that's wisdom. No doesn't need a long explanation. It doesn't need a defense. A clear no can be more respectful than a resentful yes. When you say yes out of pressure, the quality of your presence is tainted. You show up frustrated, tired, or distracted. But when you say yes with intention, because it aligns with your purpose, that yes carries power. It becomes an act of service, not survival. A choice, not a change. Responsible people don't live to please. They live to lead. They know that integrity is not just about what you agree to, but also what you refuse. The ability to say no with grace, truth, and love is a sign of strength, not selfishness. It is the mark of someone who understands that a focused life is a fruitful one, and that discipline is the doorway to destiny. Being overly nice often stems from fear, not faith. This statement digs beneath the surface of what many perceive as kindness and exposes the hidden motivations behind excessive people-pleasing. While kindness is a virtue, being overly nice, always agreeable, never saying no, avoiding conflict, and suppressing personal needs is often not rooted in love or strength, but in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of being disliked, fear of confrontation, fear of being misunderstood. At its core, it's the fear of not being enough unless constantly validated by others. This mindset creates a cycle of performance rather than authenticity. Instead of operating from a place of inner confidence and purpose, a person becomes trapped in external expectations, tailoring their actions to keep peace, gain favor, or avoid discomfort. Faith, on the other hand, gives you the strength to be real. It gives you the courage to stand firm in your values, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Faith allows you to be kind, but not compromising, loving, but not weak, generous, but not easily manipulated. When you live by faith, you understand that your worth is not determined by how many people you please, but by the purpose you fulfill. Faith empowers you to speak truth in love, to set boundaries without guilt, and to walk away from what doesn't align with your assignment. It liberates you from the pressure to perform and frees you to live with conviction. Being overly nice often leads to silent frustration. You give and give, hoping that others will recognize your sacrifices or return the favor. But when they don't, resentment brews. You begin to feel invisible, unappreciated, and used. The irony is that in trying to avoid conflict, you create an internal war. Your words don't match your heart, your actions betray your peace, and your kindness becomes a mask instead of a mirror. You start living in fragments, one version of yourself for public approval, and another crying for authenticity in private. This is not the life faith calls you to live. Fear says, if I say no, they'll leave me. Faith says, if I say no and they leave, they were never assigned to me. Fear says, keep quiet to avoid conflict. Faith says, speak truth in love and trust the outcome to God. Fear tries to maintain false harmony at the cost of personal peace. Faith walks in true alignment even if it means standing alone for a season. Over niceness often leads to compromise, not out of strategy, but out of survival. And survival mode is not your inheritance. You were not created to merely survive relationships, jobs, or circumstances. You were created to lead, influence, and thrive through them. True strength is not found in how well you can avoid offending people. It's found in how well you can stand in your truth with grace. It's found in your ability to choose alignment over approval and peace over people pleasing. When your actions are driven by faith, you'll stop fearing the loss of people and start honoring the presence of purpose. You'll realize that being true to yourself is not an act of rebellion, it's an act of worship. Faith frees you to stop being overly nice and start being deeply real. People-pleasing is a slow form of self-abandonment. This statement captures the hidden cost of constantly seeking to meet everyone else's expectations at the expense of your own truth. On the surface, people-pleasing looks like kindness, humility, or being easygoing. But beneath that exterior is often a quiet erosion of self-worth, clarity, and personal conviction. Every time you say yes when your heart says no, you chip away at your own authenticity. Each time you avoid expressing your needs to keep someone else comfortable, you tell your inner self that their peace matters more than your own. Over time, this repeated compromise doesn't just cause frustration, it causes identity loss. When you habitually prioritize others' approval over your own alignment, you stop showing up as your true self and start performing a role that keeps others happy. You become more of a mirror than a voice, reflecting what others want to see while silencing what you actually feel. It's subtle and gradual, but devastating in the long run. What begins as the desire to be liked slowly turns into the inability to be real. And when you trade truth for acceptance, you gain temporary peace but lose lasting power. The cost is your confidence, your voice, your dreams, and ultimately your identity. People-pleasing is often rooted in fear. The fear of rejection, judgment, or conflict. It tells you that harmony is worth any price, even if that price is your authenticity. But in reality, harmony that requires your silence is not harmony, it's bondage. When you're constantly trying to keep everyone else happy, you live in a prison made of polite smiles and silent screams. You become anxious, exhausted, and emotionally fragmented because you're constantly editing yourself to avoid disappointment. And the cruel irony is that even with all that effort, someone will still find a reason to disapprove. You sacrifice your peace for an illusion of control over how others perceive you. Living to please others teaches you to betray yourself in small, almost unnoticeable ways. You downplay your achievements so others won't feel insecure. You stay quiet about your ideas in meetings so you won't be too assertive. You agree to things you don't believe in just to avoid confrontation. with each small surrender. You teach your soul that your truth doesn't matter. And the more you abandon yourself, the harder it becomes to even recognize who you truly are. That's the danger of people pleasing. It doesn't just bend your actions, it breaks your identity. Healing from this mindset requires courage. It demands that you stop asking, will they like me if I do this? And start asking, is this true to who I am? It means facing the discomfort of disappointing others so you can stop disappointing yourself. Real relationships are not built on your ability to keep people happy. They're built on your ability to show up honestly and still be valued. If someone's love for you is based on your constant compliance, then it's not love, it's control. People pleasing may win temporary applause, but it sacrifices your long-term purpose. Reclaiming your power means learning to say no without guilt, to speak up without fear, and to live boldly without apology. When you choose authenticity over approval, you no longer abandon yourself. You come home to yourself. You can be kind and firm, loving and discerning, generous and guarded. This truth dismantles the false belief that strength and softness cannot coexist. Society often teaches us in extremes. Either you are warm or you are wise, either gentle or guarded, either open-hearted or strong-willed. But real maturity is learning to embody both ends of the spectrum with balance and intentionality. Kindness is not weakness, and firmness is not cruelty. You don't have to choose between having a tender heart and a strong backbone. In fact, life demands both if you want to live with wisdom, peace, and purpose. Being kind is treating people with respect, compassion, and empathy. It means offering a listening ear, extending grace, and choosing words that uplift rather than tear down. But kindness must not come at the expense of truth. Being firm means holding your boundaries, speaking with clarity, and standing in your convictions even when it's uncomfortable. If your kindness has no spine, it will be taken advantage of. But if your firmness has no heart, it will alienate and wound. The power lies in learning to merge both kindness that doesn't crumble and firmness that doesn't crush. Love and discernment also walk hand in hand. You can be loving toward people while also being discerning about their motives, behaviors, and influence in your life. Love doesn't mean blind loyalty. It doesn't mean tolerating manipulation, disrespect, or an emotional fatigue. Real love sees clearly and acts wisely. Discernment protects love from becoming misplaced. It teaches you to ask, is this relationship healthy for me, instead of how much more can I endure? You can show love and still say no. You can forgive and still create space. You can care deeply and still walk away when peace is consistently sacrificed. The same balance applies to generosity and guardedness. Generosity flows from a heart that wants to bless others, whether through time, resources, encouragement, or service. But when generosity is not paired with wisdom, it turns into overextension. You start giving beyond your limits, pouring from an empty cup and confusing depletion for virtue. Being guarded doesn't mean being selfish or closed off. It means protecting your time, your energy, your mental space, and your peace. It means choosing where your best yes belongs. Not everyone deserves access to your inner circle, and not every situation warrants your emotional investment. Mastering this balance requires self-awareness, confidence, and alignment with your values. It's the art of showing up as your whole self without apology. It's learning to navigate relationships, responsibilities, and seasons with intentional strength. People may expect you to always bend, always say yes, always give in, but real growth is in learning when to bend and when to stand, when to give and when to guard. It's in knowing that your softness doesn't diminish your strength. It reveals it. You can walk in love without losing yourself, extend grace without erasing your boundaries, and serve others without abandoning your own soul. True maturity is found not in choosing one quality over another, but in the ability to hold both in harmony. So, let me leave you with this. You are never called to live a life of extremes, either too soft or too hard, too open or too guarded. The strength of your character is found in your ability to walk in balance. You can be kind without being a pushover, firm without being harsh, loving without being blind, and generous without being used. This is where your wisdom shines, when you know how to protect your peace while still being a blessing to others. Stop apologizing for setting boundaries. Stop thinking love must cost you your identity. You were never created to lose yourself in the process of caring for everyone else. Stand tall with compassion, speak truth with gentleness, and give from a place of wisdom. When you walk in this divine balance, you'll not only preserve your soul, you'll command respect, inspire strength, and attract relationships that honor the full depth of who you are.